Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice on the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be doing my Jane Austen July TBR. Stay here. Oh, Harry. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books. And today we're going to be talking about my Jane Austen July TBR. It's my second year participating in the epic read-along that comes along every July, Jane Austen July. This is a read-along that is hosted by Katie at Books and Things, Marissa at Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia at Spinster's Library. All three are really great channels, and I would highly recommend checking out their introduction videos to this read along for this year. Their announcements will all be in the description down below because they have lots of recommendations for what you can read for each prompt. Highly recommend those, and at the end of the video I'm also going to be talking about what else I intend to read in July as well as Jane Austen things. If you've been around for a little while, you will know that I haven't actually read all 6 Jane Austen novels as yet. I've actually read 2 of them since being on BookTube and 1 just before I started BookTube, and prior to that I had actually only read 1 Jane Austen book, which was Northanger Abbey. I then read Persuasion just before I started on BookTube, and this really got me into the Jane Austen mindset a lot more, and I really enjoyed joining in the read-along last year of Mansfield Park, which was my 3rd Jane Austen, and I also listened to the audiobook of Emma last Jane Austen July. So I'm now 2 books away from completing Jane Austen's Big 6, and so we're going to rectify the fact that I haven't read one of the most famous books in the world in the month of July. So there are 7 prompts for Jane Austen July, and 2 of them are about watching adaptations and 5 of them are about reading. Let's get straight into the prompts, and at the end of the video I'll talk about anything I'm planning to read that doesn't fit into Jane Austen July. So prompt number 1 is to read one of Jane Austen's main 6 novels, and this is the only one you have to do in order to participate in Jane Austen July. I'm going to be planning to read a book that I really should have read before, which is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is also going to be read as a read-along with the hosts of Jane Austen July, and I believe it's going to be read in the first half of the month for that. So I'm looking forward to reading this with other people. And why haven't I read Pride and Prejudice? I haven't read it because I think it's one of those books where you already feel like you know everything about it. Like sometimes there can be that tendency of, I already know what's going to happen in Pride and Prejudice, I'm not going to bother reading it. I feel like it's in the national consciousness already what happens in this book. That's not to say that I've watched adaptations of this either, because I don't think I have watched any of the adaptations all the way through, apart from Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which I saw in the cinema for some bizarre reason. So yes, anyway, Pride and Prejudice will be my first read of Jane Austen July, and I'm really looking forward to finally finding out for myself what is the big deal about Pride and Prejudice? Why does everybody love it? It's such a beloved book. I feel like it's everybody's favourite Jane Austen pretty much, and it's some people I know's actual favourite book of all time. So I am looking forward to finding out if it's as good as all that. Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, here I come. I also am planning to listen to the audio of Persuasion for another read-along, which is a read-along and a watch-along hosted by 2 of my very favourite booktubers, Gemma Books and Jack over at Spread Bookjoy. These 2 both have amazing channels, so please do go and check them out. I'll link them both in the description down below. They are hosting a Persuasionalong, which is going to be reading Persuasion in the first half of the month, and then in the second half of the month there is a new adaptation of Persuasion coming out on Netflix, and we're going to watch that together as well. and compare notes. I've already heard that the trailer has caused a stir among Jane Austen fans, so I've actually avoided watching the trailer so that I can get excited about watching the film fresh and not knowing anything about it. I really did enjoy Persuasion the first time I read it. I found the first half a little bit slow going, but once past the beginning and into the Jane Austen mindset, I absolutely loved it. So I'm looking forward to listening to it, and I believe the version of the audiobook that I've got is narrated by Florence Pugh, who is a favourite of mine from the latest Little Women film, which I absolutely love. I'm looking forward to listening to that as well. I won't go so far as to say that I will definitely finish the big six this month, because that's committing to reading another book, which would be Sense and Sensibility, the only one I haven't got to after Pride and Prejudice. But I do have an audiobook of that as well, so watch this space, maybe. Anyway, prompt number 2 is read a work by Jane Austen that is not one of the main 6. And for this one, there's going to be a read-along as well, hosted by the hosts of Jane Austen, and they're going to be reading Lady Susan as a group read, starting in the 3rd week of July. I am able to get Lady Susan on my Libby app, so I'm going to join in with that one as well, I think, to tick off that prompt. I don't know an awful lot about Lady Susan, apart from that it's one of Jane Austen's shorter works and apparently very funny. Number 3 is to read a non-fiction about Jane Austen or her time. I wasn't actually planning to complete this prompt, but there was an audiobook sale on the other day of the book Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. I've never read anything by Lucy Worsley, and I don't know anything about this book other than that it is about Jane Austen, but I will intend to listen to it during July if I get time. And if I don't get time, I will certainly get to it at some point. Prompt number 4 is to read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. I have a retelling option, and I actually have a book out from the library that I didn't think of as fitting the second part of the prompt, the work of historical fiction, but according to the lovely Jack over at Spread Bookjoy, it would fit that, so I will probably include that as well. The retelling that I plan to listen to on audio is Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James, and I don't think I'll be able to listen to this until after I've read Pride and Prejudice, because I do believe Pemberley is the setting of Pride and Prejudice, so I will read that first and then afterwards listen to Death Comes to Pemberley, which I think is a follow-on revisiting those characters perhaps, but it's another one that I'm able to get for free on the Libby app. And speaking of library books, my second option for this prompt would be a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time, and this just about is. This is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I've been hearing a lot about this book lately, and I spotted it in the library and thought I would give it a go. This has, I believe, a time travelling element to it, and it is partially set in 1815, which is Jane Austen's time, just about. Now, we've not yet actually showed any books that are on the giant TBR, but the next prompt is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen, and I've tried really, really hard to scour my shelves for contemporaries of Jane Austen, but I read Frankenstein last year, and so I don't really have something for this prompt, but I do have a book by an author who was alive at the same time as Jane Austen. He just didn't actually write this book until 1829, so after Jane Austen's death, but he was born during Jane Austen's lifetime and therefore was alive at the same time as Jane Austen, so I'm going to count this. I may not get through this, but this is one of the last few books that I've got left to read in a collection that I bought by Atlantic Books of crime classics. This one's The Collegians by Gerald Griffin. Apparently it's about a collegian and a rogue called Hardress Cregan, and he's courting his wealthy cousin Anne, but has also embarked on a passionate love affair with a lowly but very beautiful Ellie O'Connor, perhaps? I don't know how to pronounce that. And Hardress knows that his family would never approve of this match and he should abandon his new fancy. But his lust overwhelms his conscience and he embarks on a fatal deception, secretly marrying Ellie while succumbing to his mother's machinations and becoming engaged to Anne. How will Hardress extricate himself from this dilemma? Apparently there's also a deadly conspiracy involved in this, so yeah, it's quite chunky though, so I'm not sure I am going to get through this, but this is something that I have on my shelf that just about meets this prompt because these two authors were alive at the same time as each other. Kind of. Prompts number 6 and 7 are about watching screen adaptations. Prompt number 6 is to watch a direct screen adaptation. And for this, I think that depending on how I get on with Pride and Prejudice, I may watch the Pride and Prejudice miniseries that is so famous for Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy, or the Pride and Prejudice film if I can get hold of it. And I definitely intend to watch the Emma miniseries, which stars, I'm not sure who this stars, but it's apparently very good, and my mum has lent me this one on DVD. And I meant to watch it actually last Jane Austen July and I didn't end up doing so. So maybe that. And there is of course also the new Persuasion adaptation, which I will definitely be watching for the watch along with Gemma and Jack. And prompt number 7 is to watch a modern screen adaptation. Last year I watched Clueless and I can't resist saying that I'm going to watch Clueless again because I love Clueless. I think it's, having now listened to Emma as well and watched Clueless, I think that it is actually a remarkably faithful adaptation considering it's been transplanted to an American high school in the 90s. So apart from that difference, I would say it's very faithful, and I really can't promise not to watch Clueless again because I just think it's great. But I might also watch Bridget Jones' Diary, a modern day adaptation sort of Pride and Prejudice, and I also might watch Pride and Prejudice and Zombies again if I'm in the mood after Pride and Prejudice. I have already seen that though, so maybe not. Anyway, lots and lots of options. I am probably not intending to be really hard on myself about whether I meet any of these prompts. Those are the possibilities for Jane Austen July. My other plans for July, I am still joining in with several different read-alongs that I've been joining in all year. So one of my plans is to carry on joining in with the Tudor Along. The Tudor Along is being hosted by Dani at Dani's Book World, Emily at Novelle Novels, and Gemma at Gemma Books, and they are reading the Six Tudor Queens series by Alison Weir, one book every 2 months. So we're actually coming towards the end of reading the first book, Catherine of Aragon, and so the July book will be Anne Boleyn. I don't have the Anne Boleyn book to show you because I haven't gone to the library to get it out yet, but it is definitely a plan for July to read that, and I'm hoping to actually read it in July because I've got too many plans for August. We're coming also near to the end of the Annealong, which has been hosted by Emily at Novelle Novels. That read-along was reading the Anne of Green Gables books, one book per month, and I haven't actually read the book for June yet, but I will be reading it in the next week, hopefully. The book for July is Rainbow Valley by L.M. Montgomery. I don't know any of the details of this book. I'm going to have to listen to that one because I don't have a physical copy of it. The next plan is for the Killer Reads Thriller Month Book Club. This is a book club that I've been joining in with that is hosted by AJ Dunn at AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. I will link their channel in the description down below as well, so you can go and find out more about this. We are reading one book a month from Penguin's list of the 60 greatest thrillers of all time. We had a very bad book last month, but a very good book the month before, so fingers crossed for this month, which is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Again, I don't really know too much about this. I think I've seen the film, at least in part. I may have seen the whole film, but I don't really have a very good memory of it. Hoping that the book will be a really good thriller, and we will see how we get on with that one. That one I'm going to be borrowing on the Libby app. I've got a hold on for both the ebook and the audiobook. I feel like I'm talking about a lot of audiobooks for July, so may not get through all of these, but yes, I will definitely be hoping to get to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with the Killer Reads Thriller Month Book Club. Another group read that I've decided to join in with is being hosted by V over at the Sassy Library Fox, and that is a Clune-along, which is going to be reading The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Clune. I feel like I'm one of the only booktubers, definitely bookstagrammers, who have never read this book. So when V said that she hadn't read it either and she was hosting a read-along, I jumped at the chance to read this as well. And this will be another Libby borrow. I also have 2 buddy reads planned for the month of July. The first one is with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and we have so far buddy read 2 books together, and we have very similar feelings about the books that we've read together. So I've really enjoyed buddy reading with Berna so far, and this time we're going to be buddy reading one from the giant TBR, 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. Now, I have read 3 Liane Moriartys to date, and I really enjoyed 2 of them, one of which was the Big Little Lies book, which is just absolutely fantastic, as is the series, but I also have read one of hers that I didn't enjoy at all, so a bit of a mixed bag so far with Liane Moriarty. This one is about a luxury retreat in the middle of nowhere and 10 days in which no one can leave, with 9 strangers seeking perfection and each discovering the perfect lie. So I think this one will be twisty like Liane Moriarty's books normally are, and I've heard mixed things about it, but I am really looking forward to getting to this one and getting it off the giant TBR. So looking forward to reading this one with Berna, and I will link her channel in the description down below. So that's the first buddy read that I have for July. The second one is very recently booked in and a bit impromptu, because I'm going to be buddy reading a book with Charlie from Charlie Brooke, and Charlie and I both recently hauled the same book, so decided to read it together, and it's a book of short stories. I'm really looking forward to getting to it, and I recently hauled it in my Bookshops of London visit, and it's You Have a Friend in 10A by Maggie Shipstead, which I bought there, and I think Charlie bought in her visit to Henley vlog, which I really enjoyed. So do check that one out in the description down below if you haven't checked out Charlie's channel yet. So yes, I bought this one in Hatchards in London, and yeah, I just wanted to show you these beautiful end papers because I forgot to show them in my haul video. You Have a Friend in 10A is a book of short stories by Maggie Shipstead. I really loved Great Circle, and I've recently made my mum read it as well. She loves it too. So looking forward to this one. I love this cover, and this has 10 short stories, so Charlie and I thought we would read them together and compare notes, and hopefully these are going to be really good. And if so, Maggie Shipstead may be a new favourite author. So really looking forward to reading this with Charlie Brooke. I think that is all for my July TBR. I do really enjoy reading summer reads in the month of July as well. So I have purposely not picked out any more than I've talked about, because was quite a big list anyway. Should I have any further time, or should I decide that I've got too many audiobooks listed and I'm actually going to concentrate on some TBR books, I will probably select some thrillers, because I absolutely love a thriller in summer. Maybe read some Jack Reacher, but anything else that I pick for the month needs to be off the giant TBR, because otherwise I won't get enough read off the giant TBR, and I'm fairly certain it's going to go up in the month of June, so I will be needing to focus on getting some books off my shelf as well. Anyway, that is all for the Jane Austen July TBR, with a few extras. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do give it a like. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. Please do comment down below, have you read any of these books before? Are you going to be joining in with Jane Austen July? Will you be reading a Jane Austen this July? Will you be reading Pride and Prejudice perhaps? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love to hear from you. and chat to you in the comments. I do hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alison the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.